As we learnt in the last video, microscopes were a really important invention and they completely changed the field of biology in science. They revolutionized the study of biology. Because suddenly we could look and examine the individual cells that make up living things. And it's helped us to work out how living things have evolved and how they function. So this video we're going to look at the three main types of microscopes, and then we'll look at the most common one that we'll use in the lab for looking at cells. So the first type of microscope is called a stereo microscope. And we can see a picture of a stereo microscope. These are the most simple ones. They're really used for just examining the outside of a living thing. The outer structures, which is just the anatomy. So we can see here, we're looking at an insect, and all we can see is we've zoomed in and we can see the legs and the head. It's really just like looking through some binoculars. And stereo microscopes, they magnify images by about 200 times. So they zoom in by 200 times. The next type of microscope is called a compound microscope. And we can see in the picture here, compound microscopes zoom in quite a bit further than stereo microscopes. So they can examine individual cells. But to do that, we need to actually slice a piece of the organism into a really thin slice. So generally the living thing has to be dead, and we need to slice it and then add it to a little glass slide. And this is called a section. Sections of tissue of the living thing. And compound microscopes, these zoom in a lot further, anywhere up to 1,500 times to zoom in. So we can see both of these two microscopes, they are just using light to view the image. We're either shining a light on it from the outside in a stereo microscope, or there's a light source coming up from underneath in a compound microscope. So both of these microscopes we call light microscopes. Which is different to the next one we'll look at, and these are electron microscopes. So electron microscopes, obviously from the name, they use electrons and they fire them in towards the living thing or the tissue, and then a computer actually detects what happens to the electrons. So we actually don't look through it, we just get a computer image at the end. But these are much more powerful technologies, and they can actually zoom in by 1,000,000 times. So we can see 1,000,000 times smaller things with electron microscopes. And we can see here they make some amazing pictures too. These are pollen grains zoomed in. So when we're in the lab, the most common microscope we'll use to look at living things is the compound microscope.